Season 8, Episode 1 of Game of Thrones is finally here after quite a long wait. It had a little bit of a different animation at the start, very similar to the usual animations, but this time you went inside some of the buildings. So you saw inside Winterfell and you saw inside the Red Keep. We start off with a large army going through the snow, and it becomes clear that they're heading towards Winterfell. We then get to see whose army is it, where are they coming from. Okay, we get to see Dany and we get to see Jon inside the army, and so this is obviously the remnants of what was up past the wall. And we get to see some of the Unsullied and some of the Dothraki and all of the different kind of elements of the army, and then we get to see Arya. Arya's waiting on the sidelines here, and she sort of lights up a little bit as she sees Jon Snow approach, but as he goes past, she decides to not shout out to him. We then get some shots of some of the more familiar faces in the army. We've got the Hound coming back down with the army. We've got her old blacksmith friend Gendry. He's travelling down with the army. And we get some of the Hand of the Queen. We get the Dwarf. And we get the Eunuch in the little carriage. They're not marching with everybody else. And so we've got a little bit of a catch-up on what's happening. Okay, it doesn't go into, previously what happened as such, but just you can see all the people here together, and this is what's happening. And around about here is where I realised that I really should have rewatched Season 7 before watching Season 8, Episode 1. So I was actually thinking, what, the Hound's with him now? And I thought, of course he is. He was up there fighting up in the north. So, I probably should have looked at Season 7 before watching Episode 1 of Season 8. And then we get the first of our sort of dragon shots. Okay, this one's a bit ordinary looking. The CGI wasn't anything special, but it's not that bad. But yep, we got the two dragons left with the army. The army's going to Winterfell. The people in Winterfell are all looking a bit unhappy. Although saying that, I think the people at North always look unhappy, so that doesn't really mean much. But we've got a little bit of a reunion going on here, and all of the forces are converging upon Winterfell. So we get a little bit of a reunion between Jon and Bran and Jon and Sansa, and then we've got a sort of council meeting of all of the North in there, kind of meeting their new queen, or who they're trying to say is their new queen, and it becomes pretty evident that Sansa is not a fan. Sansa does not like Dany. It's very, very clear. There's a little bit of trouble between these two, and the queen knows it. She is not that big a fan of Sansa. And there's not really much going on there other than some general grumblings of, we made Jon Snow the king of the north, and now he's not the king of the north, and he's saying that this queen is the queen of everybody. So a little bit of unhappiness in the north for Dany being the new queen. And at one point, they send away the new leader of the Umbras, a little boy, to go away and get some more of his people, which doesn't seem like a big deal now, but we'll get back to that at the very end. A little bit after that, we get to see Tyrion approaching Sansa, and about then is when I remembered that they're married still. So these two are married. They've never had any kind of divorce, although maybe something was announced somewhere for a divorce. I think because they assumed that Tywin was dead, and Sansa was, I guess, married again afterwards. But these two are sort of still husband and wife, and they have a little bit of a talk, as they should, about how, he got blamed for Joffrey's death and she disappeared and all that sort of stuff. But that'll be an interesting dynamic to see if anything comes of these two, since they're sort of still married. Tyrion earlier told the sort of little council that the Lannisters will be marching north. The Queen promised she'll be sending people to march north. And one of the interesting things Sansa brought up, a very practical matter, is how we're supposed to feed these people. So they obviously have got a winter up there, and sort of winter going on everywhere now, but they don't have a lot of food. And so how will they feed these massive numbers of people? And as she says, what do we feed the dragons? And Dany replies, or I think she says, what do dragons eat? And Dany replies, whatever they want. But when Tyrion and Sansa are talking alone, Sansa tells him, or says to him, do you really believe that Cersei will be sending troops north? And he said, yeah, of course she will. It's in her interest. And she says, wow, I thought you were the smartest person I know. So she's obviously not believing that Cersei's going to be sending people north, and Tyrion has a bit of a weird look in his face like, I kind of believed her this time. We then get another little reunion, this time between Arya and Jon, and they have a little bit of banter about, what have they been up to, what's been happening last time since they saw each other. And that's about it for the reunions, at least for the very, very start of this episode. We then cut all the way down to King's Landing, And the Hand of the Queen tells Cersei that the army of the dead has broken through the wall and it's marching down onto Winterfell, and she looks like she's pretty happy. So this is what she expected, I guess, and from this I assume she's not sending people north to go help. So I guess she hopes that the dead will kill off the people in the north and then head back up north, I suppose. So, yep, she's pretty pleased that her enemies up in Winterfell are about to go get killed by all the dead people. And then we get to see a scene showing the Iron Fleet heading back across the sea, and again I'm reminded of all the things I completely forgot happened. So they were sent across to pick up an army, and obviously I think Cersei promised to marry the guy running the Iron Fleet. Is it Ergion? Gee, I have to look up everyone's names again, it's been a while. But I'm not sure if she actually agreed to marry him, but it was kind of vague that she might marry him or something like that. But anyway, they're coming back across the sea, and they've got this new army that they've paid for to help fight for the Queen. Okay, Euron is his name. We have a scene with Euron, and he's got his sister prisoner there. Yara is still his prisoner from the previous episodes, and Theon kind of jumped overboard at that point in time and abandoned her, and she's the only person he says that he can actually talk to, because the rest of his people are all mutes. And then we get a little bit of a reunion again between him and Cersei, where basically she's sort of thankful that the men are there, but they're not really going to be getting any business on. But he kind of presses it a little bit, and he gets to go in and nail the Queen. We then get to see our good old friend Bronn. He's got a couple of professional ladies working him over, and he gets interrupted by the Hand of the Queen, and he basically gives him a crossbow, which I'm assuming is the crossbow that Tyrion used to kill his father Tywin, and it sort of hints, I don't know if he hints, it's maybe a little bit more than hints it, but basically says that the Queen wants him to kill both of her treacherous brothers. So the Queen's definitely against Jaime now as well, and Bronn's been tasked with killing Jaime and the dwarf, but it's a little bit vague whether she means you're going to go up to Winterfell right now and sort it out, or if you're going to wait to see what happens with all the wars, and if they happen to survive the war, then I want you to kill it then. But that's probably not as exciting. So I imagine he's going to be on his way up to Winterfell soon, and whether he does kill him or not, who knows, but he's maybe tasked to go and assassinate Tyrion and Jaime. And then it's back to reunion time again. This time we have Theon. Theon breaks into the ship where Yara is being held captive, since most of the other people are off the ship by now. They're inside King's Landing. And he rescues her, and then they get a couple of ships, I guess the ships that he arrived on, and they go and sail away. And she basically says they're going to head towards the Iron Islands and take them back, since all of the other guys' people are away from the Iron Islands. But Theon sort of wants to go up to Winterfell and help them out there, so she tells Theon to go to Winterfell. So she's on her way back to the Iron Islands, and Theon, perhaps, it doesn't show it, but perhaps he's on his way back up to Winterfell to go help them fight. And then we're back to Winterfell, and the Onion Knight's here now. I guess he was there all the time, but didn't really see him earlier. The Onion Knight's there, we've got the Eunuch, we've got the Dwarf, and they're all kind of talking about how the North isn't going to really accept this new queen, and what they should do is they should have the Queen marry Jon, but they're kind of saying, like, yeah, but they're not going to listen to us because, you know, they'll do their own thing. Whereas I don't think anyone's really aware that the two of them have been banging, so I'm not sure about that. Again, I haven't watched season 7 in a long time, but maybe that's still a secret. Maybe no one realizes that the two of them like each other, so I'm not sure. But they seem to be talking like, how are we going to convince them to marry? And then we get a little mini crisis. Seemingly the dragons aren't eating any food, or they're not eating enough food. They don't like the north. Perhaps they don't like the cold. And so they decide it's time for a bit of a dragon ride. So what we get to see here is we get to see Jon Snow. He gets on the dragon. He's very hesitant. And then, yep, off they go. So we've got 2 dragon riders now. We've got one for each of the dragons. When the dragons sort of land, they land in the middle of nowhere. I guess there's a waterfall nearby. And Jon and Dany start getting it on. And this dragon here, he's having a good look. He's watching what's going on. It's a little bit disturbing, but the dragon is having a bit of a perv on what's going on in front of him. And then we're back to Winterfell, and it's reunion time again. We've got Gendry, and we've got the Hound, and the Hound's just had some big special obsidian axe made for him, so he'll be cleaving up some dead people with that in no time. and both of them turn around and they see Arya there, and there's a little bit of funny banter between the Hound and Arya. I don't know if it's supposed to be funny, but he sort of says, "Hey, didn't you leave me for dead?" And she replies, "But I robbed you first." And he just kind of leaves her alone, and then she sort of meets up with Gendry, and she says to Gendry, "This is something that I want you to make." And it looks a bit like some sort of a staff with a removable part, or I should say some sort of spear with a removable part, or maybe it's probably a big lance, and I'm guessing it's going to have some sort of obsidian head at the front, and she'll be able to replace that when it snaps off and put another one on. And maybe she's thinking that'll be a good weapon for when I steal a dragon and get on board the dragon and start using that. So it could be a very long lance, that, dare I say, a dragon lance, that she may be able to deploy from up there. When she saw the dragons earlier in the episode, she had a pretty big smile on her face, so I'm pretty sure that she's going to want to be riding a dragon, and this may be a weapon that she thinks she'll be able to deploy from the dragon. The other option, I guess, is maybe you could spin it around and the head of it would kind of fly off. It would be like a projectile, but I'm sure a bow and arrow would be far better, so I don't think that's what this picture's showing. It probably shows that the head of it can be replaced once it's snapped off into somebody, and put another one in maybe. And then we're back into reunion time again. This time we've got Jorah's back. Completely forgot that he was back with her again. I really need to go and watch season 7. But he's back, and I remember he got all fixed up. His flesh was sort of rotting away, or wasn't, was sort of becoming stone or whatever. And then we've got Big Sam. This it's Samwise Gamgee, different Sam. He's sort of meets up with him, and then the Queen tells him some bad news that she kind of burnt his father and brother alive. And Sam's a little bit upset about that, although don't know why he's that upset about his father, but I guess he still really cared no matter how bad his father treated him. So a little bit of tension now between Sam and his new queen, because she sort of murdered a little bit of his family when they had surrendered. And then Sam and Jon have a little bit of a reunion, but slightly before that, Sam was speaking to Bran, and Bran said that he has to go tell Jon who his real parents are, because they kind of sorted that out earlier. Last season, and so Sam tells Jon that Ned Stark is not his father, Ned Stark is his uncle, and that Ned Stark's sister is his mother, and that the old king's son, what was his name? Something like Rhaegar. They all have very similar sounding names. That was his father. Anyway, the guy that fought in the previous war against the other guy that became the king before the Game of Thrones episode started. And so he's the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. They had a legitimate marriage and so on, and he's a bit sort of taken aback that can't be true. And then it's sort of put on him that he was the king of the north, and he gave up that crown to sort of ally with Dany, who is the so-called rightful queen, but he is actually the rightful king, and the question is whether or not she will put aside her claim and bend the knee to him. So we've got a little bit of tension now, perhaps, between Dany and Jon, and who's going to be leading us. And also Jon's got the problem of even telling people that this is the truth, and who's even going to believe him. He was also being called by another name. I don't remember I guess they discover that also, what he was actually named in season 7. But I think it was Aegon. They'll call him Aegon Targaryen. But it'd be interesting to see if he still goes by the name Jon, or if he actually changes his name as well. And then we've got some of the northern guys sort of creeping around a dark place, and again, I don't know what's happening here. I'm not sure where they were left at the end of season 7, but they're creeping around, they're looking for something, they're looking for someone, and then they come across some of the old Night Watch guys, and a little bit of comedy as well. The Night Watch says, "Watch out, he's got blue eyes," and he replies, "I've always had blue eyes," and they realise he's not dead, because all the dead guys have got blue eyes. And then this is where they discover the body of the Umbra boy from way back at the start, the Umbra boy that was sent away to grab his people. He's kind of lying on I guess he's on the wall, he's pinned to the wall, and he's surrounded by kind of tentacles made out of arms and legs. So there's a severed leg and arm festival going on in a bit of a pattern, with these sort of circular radial bits of bodies coming out, and then he kind of comes to life and they put him on fire. So that might be the symbol for the Night King, I think is what they say. I don't remember seeing that anywhere before, but that kind of spindly armed thing, maybe that was in previous episodes. I don't remember that though. But what they do say is that they are, at the moment, somewhere between the Wall and Winterfell, and so that obviously means that the Night King's army is between the Wall and Winterfell, so it is maybe halfway towards Winterfell. If you have a look at a map, that's still quite a distance it's covered. Not that the series really keeps close to maps, it's difficult to write continuity of maps and stuff, but they're well on their way to getting to Winterfell, so it won't be that long. Although saying that, they're going to have to build it up. They can't get there next episode, I wouldn't imagine, but they're on the way, they're under the Wall, and they're on the way to Winterfell. So, in the end bit of the episode, you might call it the epilogue perhaps, we have a mysterious rider coming in with some other people, and I thought it might have been the Red Lady, but I was completely wrong. It's Jaime Lannister. So he pulls the hood back, and it's a guy, and it's Jaime Lannister, and he's got back to Winterfell. I guess he hasn't been there since the very first episode of the first season, and he's looking around. They've also stopped dyeing his hair, I note. He's given up on pretending to have blonde hair. He's definitely not rocking blonde hair anymore as he originally had. And as he's looking around, he sees a guy in a wheelchair, and it kind of dawns on him that, oh, that's that kid I tried to murder and threw him out of the window. So he has a bit of a look on his face. Oh, yep, I tried to kill you, and you're still alive. And the episode closes out with a close-up of Bran's face, and Bran's having a good think here. He's obviously thinking about something. Maybe he sees Jaime's future. Who knows what's going on? But that is the absolute final scene, or the final image of the final scene of Episode 1, Season 8. So, all in all, nothing happens at all, basically. We've got setups, everybody's reunited, there's a bit of good banter between everyone, and it's just set up. So, on a whole, the episode has nothing happening, but it's all being set up. So, 100% set up, stuff's going to happen soon, but the episode itself, nothing happens at all. The episode's quite good, but if the promise of all the setups works, obviously. So, nothing happens here at all. If nothing comes from this, it's a complete failure, but at this stage, nothing happens, nothing was expected to happen, but we've just got everybody's being reunited, and pretty much everyone is in Winterfell except for the Queen. So the Queen's down in King's Landing, and everyone else is in Winterfell, and the Night King's kind of close to Winterfell. So there's going to have to be some sort of battle going on soon. It'd be interesting to see what exactly happens with Cersei, if she decides to get her troops on the boats and attack from the other side, or what really goes on with that. But we'll see what the rest of the season contains. It's looking good so far, with, again, nothing happening. So nothing of consequence at all yet. Just all the little ends are tied up. Everything's tied up. It's all very nice and neat right now. And now we're going to see where it goes from here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.